Okay. Welcome everybody to another panel session with Elevate Your Voice and Make It Matter. I've got some fantastic guests today. This is session 3, and today's session is building a circle of success, a circle of influence for future success. And this has been hosted by StageClip and IO Labs, and it's been sponsored by Alumni. So everybody, welcome to this panel. We also kicked off our first workshop session today, which was absolutely amazing. We had all our students join, and hopefully they'll be here commenting and talking about this session. So welcome everybody. I hope my volume is okay. I'd love to start introducing our panelists, who are going to be absolutely amazing. So first, I'd like to go with Angela Maiers. Angela, welcome to the panel.
It is a thrill to be here. I'm still on a high from being with the students this morning. And these are some of my favorite topics, understanding the power of our community, the power of our network. I literally can't wait to get started.
Angela, welcome. Now, Angela is a 3 times TEDx speaker. She's also an author and educator. Angela, really looking forward to your comments and joining the discussion. Also, of course, is Maria Gallo. Welcome to our panel. Now, Maria, you are known as the Alumni trailblazer. You also own your own business. You've been a TEDx speaker. Tell us about yourself.
Yes, you kind of. I'm very passionate about alumni connection, alumni networks, and I just recently published the book Alumni Way: Building Lifelong Value from Your University Investment. And so I'm delighted to talk to everyone today. I'm excited about this panel, and I'm excited to talk about the value of alumni connection.
That's fantastic, Maria. Looking so forward to our discussion. Just before, we were talking about networks and how students and graduates can utilize those. So I can't wait to come to that. Anthea, welcome. Anthea is the CEO and founder of the Bridge Foundation. Welcome to the panel.
Thank you. And I'm excited as well. We just left a wonderful workshop with students from all around the world, and they shared with us their passion in terms of connecting to global networks and asking us lots of questions about how to do that. So I'm very looking forward to this conversation, and my passion of tapping the power of communities. So I'm as equally excited as Angela in terms of really having a great discussion about community and what it means to connect to community. So looking forward.
Amazing, Anthea, looking forward to that. Sana, welcome to the panel. It's great to have you here. Sana, of course, is the founder of Knowledge Nectar. Sana, welcome to the panel.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. My first time actually joining this panel, so I am very, very excited. And yeah, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Thanks, Sana. And of course, Tamar, you're just incredible. Welcome. You, of course, are the co-founder and CXO of TradePal and also a team member of IEO. Welcome to the panel. You're muted.
Thank you, Weston. You always give me such great introductions. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to sharing my skills and knowledge in the startup space and how I can help anybody that's listening. Thank you.
So I want to start it off with context. We talk about influence. We talk about power. We talk about networks. It's not a new term. We've had them for centuries. The people used to go to the Greeks who were masters at the power of influence. We had people from all around the world to go and learn from them. And as a student, as a graduate, you've got so much work happening around you. You've got exams. You've got to think about what's going to happen afterwards. In that time, do we really think about influence? Do we really think about networks? And then you come out of university, you go into the world, and you realize, as much as the bank balance is great, your net worth is essentially your network. So with that context, I wanted to talk about the circle of influence for future success. And when we talk about circle of influence, you could be interpreted in different ways. We previously had insights with experts preparing students for career shifts, adaptability, and future workforce. One of the key themes that came out of that was your ability to network and grow and communicate with people so that you can build your influence. So, with that, I want to come to you, Maria, working with higher ed, working with alumni networks. How powerful are networks, and how much does influence play a role? And as a student or a graduate, should you be thinking about that now?
Absolutely. I've always said to students that are very tentative about, thinking about growing their network, you become an alum from the moment that you step on campus or from the moment that you actually start your virtual classes. So that's the power that you have. You have this connection with thousands and tens upon thousands of people, including your fellow students, including your faculty members, the academic staff, but also this rich alumni network that you can actually kind of connect with. So absolutely, it should start from the moment that you enter college, the moment you start university, and it should just be an opportunity to be able to kind of navigate it and just ask questions and to kind of find people. And so what I would be saying to people is like, just be observant, see who's out there, who's kind of come into your class to come and speak to you as a guest lecturer, for example, and connect with those people. It's so much easier to do that nowadays. Build a LinkedIn profile and be able to start reaching out. That's like the first steps.
Amazing. And same question to you, Angela. You've obviously been nominated as part of Guru's top 30 in the world. Well, congratulations, first of all, for
Thank
that.
you.
You've been working with students, alumni throughout your life as an educator, as an author, as someone who's owned a business. How important are networks, and why should young people, especially now with the fact that these next 10 years are going to be so disruptive, change is going to scale at a rate we've never seen in our
Absolutely.
lifetimes before.
Absolutely.
What's your thoughts on that?
I'm just going to reiterate what you said earlier. Your networks are your net worth. And that isn't just technological, that is biological. We are wired as human beings to connect. We thrive when we're a part of a group, when we're a part of a community. And there is no individual that I know that attributes their success, from the most famous to the people right next door, that attributes their success to individual accomplishment. My success is a representation of the people that I have intentionally and unintentionally had the gift of being surrounded by. Technology's greatest gift to humanity is not our access to content, it is our access to humanity. We literally can have anyone in the room that we choose. And my mantra is the smartest person in the room is the room. So choose wisely.
Wow, that's incredible. The wisest person in the room.
Thank you for that.
Is the
Anthea
room.
is the room. The wisest person is the room. Anthea, what about you? You were in the
Yeah.
power circles in your time when you were in New York. How important was that, navigating those circles, and on that experience, drawing upon that, how would you or what would you advise some of the young students and graduates who are going to be entering these same circles?
Yeah. Well, I would just like to build upon what was said and share that the how valuable your network is how first you have to understand that you have a network, and that the realization that a network exists is so important. Working with young people, that's the biggest issue. They have a lot of people around them, but they don't really have a term for it. It's just a lot of people. But once you start to acknowledge that it is a network, and then that's the power. So now the power would be, what do I do with that? So managing your network is something that's very important. How you manage your network, the level of control that you have with it will give you the potency that you need. And I think that is key. If you have 5 people, you have 6 people, you have 100 people, but you don't have the tools or the skills to manage it, it's not really worth anything. And that's where the network and the net worth comes in, is the management of that particular process. And so, working in New York and working with young people here in Trinidad and Tobago, in the Caribbean, is about giving them the tools and the skill sets and the roadmap, so that they can access it and that they can leverage the network that they have. And I'll be willing to talk more about that later in terms of the communities that we've been working in. But that is the key, knowing that you have it and then having the skills to navigate it, so that you can leverage as much as you can from it. And then understanding also, the intention of connecting to that network. Why? And we talked a lot about that, and we can share some more information on that. But also the purpose of bringing a network close to you. Why are we going to bring a network close to me? What is it? What am I going to get out of that? And we can talk more about that as well. But the key thing is that that you have one, and then how do I access it and how do I manage it?
I agree. It's finding a way to get into that network. Once you found that way, it is then how you navigate yourself throughout it. And I absolutely agree. Anthea, thank you so much for that. Tamar, I'd like to come to you. Same question. How important is influence and networks for students and graduates?
So when I think about this question, I think about working in San Francisco, and part of that time we visited many campuses and met with various student organizations. And what I was finding, whether it was in New York City or in San Francisco, the students had a very good understanding of who their network was, but it was about framing what are those sound bites, what are those concepts that they want to relay, what am I trying to represent, and what am I trying to derive from speaking to those audiences. So figuring out what is, using that sounding board and identifying what their needs are and what their pain points are, and then being able to respond to those helps you build more influence, helps you bring in more of an audience and grow from that. So it constantly for me was looking at who are the different groups, where are these groups located, how are they interconnected, and then what message do they need? What could our technology per se give for them, and how could they use it? Because each region has their own use case. So we were highlighting what could help them to be better. So we're always looking at the big picture and then the subsections of how it works for each individual group or network or user.
And with that, Sana, I'm going to build on that and come to you, because you're working with young students around the London area. You're working with graduates. What's your opinion? How important do you think it is for them, and does it come up in conversations?
Absolutely. I think everyone has made some fantastic points. I think building a network, it's a fantastic place to start, because I started networking a lot later in life, and I wish I had started sooner, and I wish I had the tools in place. I apologize, I've got a cold, so my voice might be changing throughout the conversation. So some things that we really like to do is having summer courses available. So joining summer courses, it could be something, for example, we have a robotics club. Joining, if you enjoy programming, you can join those courses, try out different things. I think it's also really important, someone mentioned about finding out what is it that you want to represent, find out what you enjoy, try out different things. Perhaps there might be something that you think, I'm not really into this, and you try something out and you think, wow, actually that's amazing. So we really encourage our students to also come up with their own ideas. And what's something that you would like to do? Having school council meetings where we have students always having discussions on this and building on new ideas. And I think building a network is something that is important, but also embedding it into your everyday routine and also maintaining that network is just as important. And you'll realize, especially when you start young, through these networks, you end up building lifelong friendships. So it's a win-win situation. And I really like the quote: "The smartest person in the room is the room." So really, it's a fantastic way to find out really what you're passionate about, where your interests lie, and it's just an amazing way to build your confidence as well.
Agree. And I like that word about building friendships and relationships, because we talk about influence, we talk about networks, but of course, other words that have come across us, and we come across those all the time, is community, network, or groups. And with that, Maria, I'd like to come to you because you wrote a book, The Alumni Way: Building Lifelong Value from a University Investment. What's the difference between community, groups, and networks? And in the context of leveraging your alumni network, uh, I'd love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, great. When I think of a community, you think about how everyone is kind of wading in. Everybody is kind of helping out and being part of a community. And what I would always be arguing to people is that that's the kind of sense that we want to be kind of creating among our students, new graduates, and our alumni, is creating that sense of community. Because sometimes what can happen when we are looking at building a network is that we think about it as, I need something now, and so I need to go out to my network to find what I'm looking for. And what I would be saying is that if you're part of, you think about it like a community, and you think about that community ethos, it's all that give and take. And sometimes younger people and younger graduates may think, oh, what do I have to offer? What kinds of things am I really? But there's actually so much that they can actually offer in return to a network. And if you don't ask, you don't find out what those things are. So what I would be saying is, in some ways, the words are quite, they can be very interchangeable. And I guess with a network, it's about how you're assembling and thinking about the different nodes within that network, the different connections, and how they connect to different aspects of your life. And whereas a community has much more of like a sense of an ecosystem. And so to me, they're almost like they are interchangeable. So I think it's important for us to be thinking both in the sense of, okay, well, I'm connecting these people and they're part of my network because I connected through my university or through another shared experience. And I'll talk a little bit more about shared experiences later on. Or it's part of this, and all of those kind of networks are part of this wider community that I'm a part of and that I'm contributing to as much as I'm taking from.
I agree. Give as much as I'm taking from. It makes absolute sense because I think for you to build those sustainable building blocks of and the foundations, um, reciprocating as a way of building a network, give first, and then the other person then wanting to give back, I think always works great. And with that, Andrea, I'd love to come to you as well. We've heard what Maria said about communities and networks. What's your opinion on the difference between the three?
Oh, Maria, you're so spot on. And it is confusing because as human beings, as connected individuals, we have multiple groups of humans that we surround ourselves with for different purposes. So I put the purpose in front of the definition. So network's purpose is to connect. It's an interconnected, dynamic group of relationships. And those relationships are built on trust. So they're extendable connections, meaning if Wasim shares a connection in his network, I'm friends with Wasim. So therefore, Maria, you're now our friend because you're friends with Wasim and he brought you in. So by network definition, you are now a part of my network, a part of my trust circle. Our groups serve. They serve with a connected sense of belonging and identity. You can be in multiple groups. You may not have necessarily a trusting relationship with the individuals in that group, but you trust what they belong to and what they're about. For example, I'm in a mom's group for my local area. And when people like talk about other things that serve what we belong to that group for, the group administrator, it gets very, very mad. Like, that is not okay in this group. That is not okay in this group, because the group comes together for a certain affinity around a certain identity, and you belong to that group because of that, and that needs to be respected. And then a community is sort of the intersection between both of those, having the tenets of connection, having the tenets of belonging. The biggest difference, or the biggest word that I associate with community, is mattering. The people in the community matter to each other. They care about each other. Their commitment is to the human elements, not necessarily the affinity to the topics they're talking about or affinity to the relationships, but they actually matter to each other. So our sense of contribution in a community is different than the kind of contribution we make, which may be more surface level in a group or more intentional in a network. Community to me is akin to like family. My community is my family. I care about them as living, breathing human beings that I am growing with and because of. So networks connect, groups serve and belong, and communities matter. They care about each other.
Absolutely, Angela. That was a masterclass. Thank you so much for that. I got a question for you,
That is
Sanam.
next.
No, that was amazing. Sanam, we talked about Clubhouse. We talked about technology. You know, how much of an impact? Question from Adil. How much of an impact did that have in you growing your network? And what were the pitfalls?
What's a great question. Actually, so I started Knowledge Nectar in the midst of the pandemic back in March 2020. And so I'm an educator. I teach maths and computer science. And what I found was that a lot of our students were really struggling. And we had access to some of the best online software. And I thought, why not branch this out? So I got on with maybe 20 other teachers who were on board to making an impact and making a difference and inspiring students. And that's how Knowledge Nectar began. And it was because we were forced to change everything to make it online where Knowledge Nectar basically started. And I think it had a huge impact on how my business began. And it really kind of proved, I think it was a proof of concept that the digital world is the way forward. So I think there is a huge influence in terms of the online world and what we can do. And, you know, technology is constantly evolving. And I'm so excited to see, you know, imagine just let's say 10 years from now where we will be and what we will be doing. I'll bring in the AI word into this, you know, forming a marriage between artificial intelligence and education, and what that can do for us. And something that my company likes to do is also try out new technologies that are using artificial intelligence at the moment, and they help with pupil differentiations. So you could have a class of, let's say, for example, 20 to 30 students, but every single student is so different in their learning needs, in their level of understanding, how they understand different concepts, the way their working memory works. So artificial intelligence is a fabulous tool to use within the classroom because it allows students to work at the pace that is right for them. And that's another way where I completely can see us getting even better in terms of education and using it as a tool to help teachers and educators really, you know, help their pupils make progress, build confidence, and excel in their learning. We can't hear you. You're muted.
And sorry, you talked about skill sets, and I think you brought that up. You can have the community, you can have the network, but then how you utilize those skill sets. I'd love to know from your perspective. Same question. You know, what is your perspective on community, and how to build your circle of influence, and then what are the skills you need to have to really navigate them?
Yeah. So, you know, communities. In terms of communities of practice, in terms of the work that I do in neighborhoods, what we would say is that all communities of practice are networks, but not all networks are communities. And I think that is the key thing. Networks are connections, like what Angela said. Communities happen at the intersection of a network and a group. And what usually happens when you bring a network of people together, eventually over time, little communities actually develop, because what happens is that they begin to connect. Important to them. So that is the key piece. And so you start with a network, but over time, like Angela would say, in terms of human beings, They really want to develop relationships. And so that's what you want to get. That's what you want to drill down to. In terms of working in New York City, which is a little different, and where you have 59 community districts, all happening, a lot of things are happening at the same time. You have to even go a little deeper, and you have to go to the neighborhood level. And the neighborhood level is a smaller space, a more defined space. But in that space are people that are connected and are related. Related on many different issues, shared values, shared experiences. And is where you begin to talk with them most definitely about their motivations. Because we all know that if you're motivated, you're going to act on something. So if you don't dig deeper, you'll have the community, but now you have to dig deeper and I start to ask questions within that community, within that network about what motivates them, what gets them going. And so the story is that we know that make a difference. When we all share a story about ourselves, that's when we get inspired. That's what you have to do. You have to begin to inspire people by their stories, but they have to inspire themselves. And so that is a critical thing. And then what I will say in terms of skills, and I know we're going to have a long conversation on that, is that building the capacity of people. You can always bring people to a place, but if they don't have that skill set, that's when you deflate that person. So at the same time that you create access, like what we did today with the workshop was very important, is that we have to start to build the skill set at the same time. You can't do one without the other. Because what happens is that when you enter into a space, into a network space, and you have low self-esteem, it doesn't mean you can't maximize on it. So you have to build the person up. And if it's a community, you have to build the community up so that they can maximize on that experience, on that opportunity. So all those things are important to making sure that you are able to maximize the influences that are around you and your circle of influence. So it's the same thing for an individual as it is for a community, because the community is made up of individuals. So you almost have to do the same kind of interventions. And so it's very important to develop that roadmap and to put those pieces together.
I agree. I think making sure you've got the skill sets and developing the skill sets, especially when it comes to how to hold a conversation, how to make meaningful relationships by building meaningful giving. I use that term. You connect with someone. How do you use your network? How do you leverage your relationships to give them an advantage? Because that is the first point, is you will give and then you will get. And with that, then I'm going to come to you, Tamar, because you're a startup founder as well. And you understand the value of building a network and a community. And we talk about being entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs. In that startup world, how do you leverage what you're doing to build that community, build that network? Everybody's got a product. Everybody's got a tech product now. How do you differentiate yourself? How do you get people to buy in with what you're doing because you really feel that it serves the community?
It's a great point that you're making as far as getting them to buy in, because that's the key goal that you have. You need to show your metrics, you need to show your growth. So how are you enabling that on a daily basis? And how are you showing that line going up? So when I think about some of what everybody's been saying, it brings me to this one meeting that I had. I went to an event at the Commonwealth in San Francisco, and it was one of the founders of Airbnb, Brian Chesky, was there. And afterwards I asked him, I said, what examples do you have, or what are the most important things as a startup founder do I need to focus on? And he said, get close to your community. That was his only thing. Just on a daily basis, get close to your community. And when I analyzed how they did it, they started with their product in New York. Then they started with having little meetups. They helped with photography. They'd meet with you. They'd help you craft it. They'd get really, really granular. And then I noticed, because my co-founder had used them when he went to South by Southwest and another time in San Francisco prior to us relocating. And getting close and having those little meetup hubs in every city, helps you to know your user base. And every user is different. Every community is different. We can't say Dallas is the same as New York City, obviously. So you need to see what's different, what's unique. How do we address them? How do we speak to them? What resonates with them? So I look at what happened even when we moved to San Francisco. That was the time of the sharing economy. So there were all these large groups. So we had Airbnb, we had Lyft, we had Uber, and our company, which was working on collaborative consumption and reuse. So all of us were looking at how do we use this idle capacity and make it have value and sell it. So that became this community. But each of us had our own little component. We had our own focus. We were focused on reuse on a mobile app with community colleges and universities. They were focused on the general population. So you have to look at, well, how do I get closer to them? And how do I leverage that big community to share resources, how to share being part of maybe that message. So initially on Wikipedia, we were one of those companies. Before someone, goes in and modifies it, we were one of those named companies. So you look at, how do I position myself? How do I make people aware? So that might be through content, that might be through speaking opportunities, that might be by going to the actual college and speaking to those students. So there's so many different ways. And it's just like Anthea said, you need to have that roadmap. You need to have your daily goals and your weekly goals and your monthly goals. And then you need to reflect back quarterly and look at, where am I meeting them? What's working? What's not working? And figure out how to hack that better. Part of the other thing that we did was, as a female founder, I needed to have my own network, because it's a lot of men in the startup space. A lot of engineers are male. So I needed to find other women that I can have as allies. I needed that network. I needed them even just to vent certain situations of challenges I'm facing, being in a new community where I don't have my social circle that I grew up with, or even from my alumni network, as we're talking about. There wasn't that. I wasn't a Stanford or Berkeley grad, so I don't have that there. So what do I have? So you got to look at, what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, and how do I make my weaknesses into strengths? By being authentic and sharing my pain points and finding people that can connect with them.
That's immune.
Going on what you said then, Tamar, Maria, I'm going to come to you. Building that community, getting that buy-in is so important. But say you didn't go to Harvard, you didn't go to Cambridge, you didn't go to Oxford, you're not even in the US or the UK, you're based in Jordan, or you're based in Africa. How does one go about creating that network? How do you reach out to people who you think you can't reach out to? And the third question, I'm giving a lot here, how much time should you spend as opposed to doing the work you should be doing on the networking part?
Well, good questions, Wasim. Thank you for giving me a place to start. I guess what I would say first is that one of the exciting things, and I know that Tamar just mentioned, I didn't go to Stanford, I didn't go to Harvard, as you just mentioned, but that doesn't matter. I think we have to be thinking that we all have rich networks, we all have enriching networks, we all have shared experiences that we've all had. It might be a shared experience in our secondary school, it might be a shared experience by having getting involved in a hackathon. There are lots of things that we have shared experiences with, and so we can identify people that we met and map them out. And it can also be through people that we know, whether those are neighbors, friends, colleagues, former classmates, and they can help us to refer us to these wider networks. And they don't always have to be those that are from these the Ivy Leagues or anything, because sometimes some of the richest people that you can get to, or the most influential people, are ones that are just it's like a bit of imagine you dropping a stone into a pool of water, and how it just creates this ripple effect. The other thing that's really powerful, and I think it's important for people to think about when we're looking about our networks, is that we are in an online environment now. We're all in different countries, we're all in different places, and to reach out to people now, I think we've really democratized the way that we can connect with others. And that if you I always say to people, you try to approach connecting with someone with a lot of kindness and a little bit of research. So if you know a little bit about that person, there's no point in connecting with them and saying, I want 15 minutes of your time, so that they can give you their LinkedIn profile. You can read their LinkedIn profile. So reach out to them and explain why you want to reach out to them. And if you have a connection to them, all the better. And that connection could be that you both are involved in, you both have something that's in common, including your alma mater, your university could be one of them, but there could be many others. And then ask them 15 minutes of the time to find out their career story. How did they get from where they are, where they were, to where they are today? That's really powerful. That's the kind of stuff you want to hear about, their challenges. You want to hear about all those kind of things that are really important, that you can get in a 15-minute conversation. And I can't remember the third part of your question now, Seem. Sorry, I've been going on.
No, I think that was more than enough. The third part was how much time you spend.
Oh, well, I would say the best thing is, if you're a student, you have classes. Think of it this way: as an extra class to your week, give it an extra hour, and that's and then make sure that you do a dedicated time. I like to call it an Alumni Friday, where you just pretend you have a Friday class and just add it into your schedule as if it's 10 to 11 every single week, and make it a consistent something consistent to do.
Angela, what about you? What do you think? You've touched millions of kids, and not just in the UK. And you know, what's your perspective on that?
Well, I think the first thing to not just students, but to every human being that doubts their value, is understanding that you absolutely have a contribution to make. And so I'm going to go back and amend my statement to the smartest person in the room is the room, with this caveat: if everyone in the room is contributing authentically and fully. That one silent person doesn't just hurt that person, it actually hurts the impact of the room. So when you look at it from a sense of responsibility, from a sense of humility and not hubris, every single person has something to share, some unique perspective, some unique thought, some unique experience. And holding that in, you have to recognize that there is someone in this room and someone in the world that needs exactly what you have, and exactly from that perspective at exactly that time. And if you withhold that, you're doing a disservice to you, but you're doing a disservice to the room. So if you reframe it like that, and think about when you were 5 years old and you brought your backpack to show and tell, everybody has something amazing in their backpack. But what people don't understand, because they haven't been 5 for a while, or been around 5-year-olds for a while, is that the essence of knowing what to say in your backpack is very intricate, because the goal isn't to say my backpack is better than your backpack. Your goal is for someone to stop you at recess and say, tell me more. And that's what you're looking for in any interaction. You're sharing just enough. You're adding just enough value for somebody to say, tell me more. And there's no greater gift you can give to another human being than proving the respect you have for them and listening to them and asking them to tell you more. We want to talk about ourselves as human beings, and yet we're so busy trying to create some system for us to share, for us to show that what we have is better or brighter or shinier than somebody else's. We lose out on so much value. So understand that you absolutely have a contribution to make, and that there's somebody in your room right now or in the world that has and needs exactly what you have. So you can't hold back. You have to be cautious and be gentle and be thoughtful in how much you share and when you share and when you have to listen, because listening is the foundation for all of this. And we're not very good at listening as human beings.
Audio.
What's in your on mute?
On mute.
So I was going to ask you, if you know your background in what you do with your company and the subject you studied, would you go into a meditation room or some other kind of event that isn't necessarily a networking event, but just to go there to meet new people Have you done that before, or is that something you would do, and why would you do it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think after this conversation, I'm definitely going to go and sign myself up for some more. So it's something that I definitely think is quite important. We did a meditation kind of workshop with our students. I'm going back to students again, but one of the main focuses that we want to build with our company is, aside from the academics, we want to build on well-being and mental health. And meditation is actually a part of that. So we did a workshop on meditation. We did different types of breathing exercises, and there was just a different aspect of it. And it really set the day for the students. So we had an hour's workshop, and after that, we saw an amazing increase in concentration when the students went about their day, went to their lessons. So I think it's something that is quite imperative that we kind of build on as educators in the future as well. I think it's something that we need to do perhaps more of. I think this is something that perhaps we're not doing enough of at the moment. So meditation, whether it be different types of well-being exercises, this really needs to be brought into the curriculum a little bit more, and that's something that we at Knowledge Nectar are doing as well. We want to we provide some fantastic mentoring programs, but having experts and people that know about meditation exercises, about how to incorporate that in to help us with the academics, I think it's so very important. So I know I'm definitely for meditation, those techniques are going to help us with our well-being and mental health.
I think the other part of that dimension and mention that is I call it cross-sector passion networking. Let me explain what that means. Lupe Fiasco, for example, is a renowned rapper. He's a thought leader. He was on Clubhouse hosting rooms on martial arts, and he was hosting rooms on food. So if you wanted to connect with him, it wasn't going to be a room on necessarily music. It wasn't going to be a room on business. You were going to connect with him through food or martial arts. Tamar, what do you say about that? In terms of a cross-sectional passion networking, I got to come a better term, but what's your opinion on how you can encounter people, not necessarily where you think you're going to meet them, but in other places?
No, it's very interesting when you talk about how people can be in places you don't expect to find them, and they might not even be in the normal attire, so you didn't even really know it was them until you were, right in front of them. I think what you look at is how these, I guess, niche interests people have, and when they put them out there, how you have a way to break the ice with them and share that commonality. And you have to seize that opportunity because you're not going to see it that often. But you need to think, this is one thing I was thinking about as we've been talking, is if you're going to speak and take that opportunity, be very aware that you need to add value. Don't just bring noise. Have something that resonates, have something that has meaning, that makes them want to ask another question. And I had an interesting, since you brought up that platform, there was one time when I was speaking on education and ed tech, and later I had an email from a gentleman from a certain basketball NBA player who wanted to know more about what I do because I was talking about my research project. And it was very interesting that resonated with him. And he was looking at, okay, how can we help you? I wasn't trying to get that kind of response. I wasn't looking for that. I didn't even think about that. But that person then sent me an email asking me, how can we work with you? So you need to always be thinking of, you might have some value add that someone else might want. And by how you present yourself, how you articulate, and how you use your circle of influence, you're going to maybe attract that.
Anthea, how do we come across Lionel Richie? How do we do it?
I really don't know. Can you tell me? You come across Lionel Richie, honestly, by really power mapping. You power map. And, when you work in communities, what is amazing is that they really don't know the power that they have. And similarly, so with individuals, you really don't know that, this circle of friends that you have is connected to Tamar, is connected to an Angela. Wasim, you're one step closer to who did you just ask me for?
Lionel Richie.
Lionel Richie, to Lionel Richie. Because by the time, if you're intentional, so the intentionality of your pursuit of intentionality of your connection, of making the connection, is very important.
Yeah.
Why am I making that connection? And what is it that I need? So in some instances, you may be a graduate that you just need to connect to your medical practitioners because I just finished med school. In some cases that I may need to connect to women with all these three wonderful 4 or 5 women on the panel because I just need to have that woman's ear that can give me some experiences about working in an environment where I'm the only woman. Maybe that is what you're going to be seeking. So the intentionality is very important, but also one point that we talked about today, which I just want to bring up, the whole issue around diversity is very important. That you want to be in spaces that align with your value system. Is very important. People who think like you is not a bad thing. If they have the same values as you, is not a bad thing, because from that you can really have very powerful communication, very powerful connections. If you want to go into a community or a network where people are interested in hearing your voice because you're from a different country, that's important. You don't want to go into a network where they don't like you. That is not where you want to be. You want to be in a space where you feel comfortable. On the other hand, if you are in Trinidad and Tobago, or you're in Accra and Ghana, and you want to connect to people that are different than you, that's different, because now you're moving into a space where you want to be learning. So the whole issue about continuous learning is very important, building your portfolio. And you want to transform yourself and actually become uncomfortable. Because that big issue is that you don't want to be as comfortable as you've always been. You want to be in your uncomfortable zone. That's important as well. So intentionality is important. Who you connect to in terms of values is important. In terms of seeking difference is important, because that changes your dynamic and how you think. I was just looking at a study. They had a couple studies where they were talking about that investment in 2022 and on is all going to be around diverse environments, because diversity connects to innovation and creativity. So you want to place yourself in those spaces where people value diversity and value difference. And because from that, you're going to get a lot of interesting conversations and a lot of innovation. So I know that's a mouthful. I don't know if I answered your question about Lionel Richie, but the intentionality of your pursuit is very important. What is your purpose?
Okay, I'm going to give you a hack here, right? And then we're going to come to our voices from the field section.
Okay.
So for those of you watching on how do you connect, specifically utilizing the power of LinkedIn, just as an example. LinkedIn has 2 very important things. One of them is LinkedIn Live, which we're currently doing. The second point is you've got the creators mode. Now, what creators mode allows you to do is, if you turn it on, anytime you're doing a LinkedIn Live, it goes right on the top of your profile. So if you're looking to connect to a certain someone and you're thinking, how do I connect with somebody? And they, I don't maybe have the biggest network, but get some recognition, because visual perception is important. It doesn't matter what anybody says, it makes a difference. If you look at using an audio platform, it'll be your voice and the resonance of that, and then people will resonate with that and connect. So what you can do on LinkedIn is, right now what we're doing here is have a LinkedIn Live, and just before you do the LinkedIn Live, send whoever you want to connect to a request, because generally most people will look at your request. Now, if you don't have any connections with them and they click on your profile and you have a LinkedIn Live going on at the same time, it's like, oh, I don't know who this person is, but these interesting people on their panel, that makes sense. And there you, 6 out of 10 times, you'll get a connection. After that is the other masterclass that will teach you what to do next. But that's how you get connections, and that's how you can use LinkedIn. And that's just an example of visual perception. So with that, we're going to come to our voices from the field section. Voices from the Field is something we as IO Lab have come to put together with StageClip, part of our Elevate Your Voice, Make It Matter campaign. And what we're going to do now is ask specific questions from all the experts on the panel today. And those questions will then serve as antidotes and advice for the students who are participating in our workshops over the coming weeks. So I'm going to now come to all the panelists and ask a specific question. So there was a report, the McKinsey report 2021, that shares that to network successfully and expand your influence, you should do the following. 1, choose your words wisely. 2, stay consistent and focused. 3, be empathetic. 4, think outside the box. 5, accept responsibility. 6, have a purpose. And 7, stay focused. And I think some of those points were already raised in terms of being empathetic and kind. So, Angela, I'm going to come to you first. Out of those, which are your top choices or top choice?
So my top choice actually wasn't there. My top choice would be listen. We're so worried about trying to be interesting to others, and that's important when you look at branding and you look at perception. But put your effort and energy into being interested in other people. When you are interested in other people, you ask powerful questions, you become more empathetic, you learn and can add value 100 times faster. We put our focus on what we should do. And I think that's the most important thing, that whether you are looking to build a community or you're looking to grow a network or you're looking to be an active member in a group, it starts and is foundational that you become an extraordinary listener.
Amazing. Maria?
I'm going to build on Andrew's point, because one of the key traits that I talk about in my book is curiosity. So it really goes hand in hand with listening. So if we're curious and you ask curious questions, and if you're coming from that authenticity, that place of interest in the other person, then you're going to get so much out of it. And you're going to get so much out of other conversations. You're going to get so much out of the network, and you're going to want to give so much to your network too. So that would be where I would be really kind of focusing on the idea of building your curiosity. And it's that's why it's so important to be thinking about saying yes to opportunities. And that's what I'd be saying is keeping saying yes to those opportunities where you can be curious and to be able to ask questions.
Wow. Curiosity. I love that. Be curious. Anthea, same question to yourself.
It's not on the list, but builds upon listening and curiosity. And I would just add to that honesty, self-honesty. The whole issue of fearing facts and truth, will send you into a place of deception. And so it connects to the point of learning and wanting to know more. But at the same time, you have to be honest with yourself. So self-honesty will drive you to that place where you'd say, wait a minute, what is it? What's holding me back? Why is it that I'm not opening up my viewpoints? Why is it that I'm not hearing, or why is it that I'm not listening? And so the issue of self-honesty is important. Reflection of yourself, self-reflection and honesty. And that will give you that would open up the box to all kinds of opportunities.
I love that. Listen, be curious, self-honesty. Tamar.
I have one that aligns with thinking outside the box, but it's more about being open-minded. We have, like we were talking about how what Anthea said, how innovation is spurred. So when you think of the creativity of people that are challenged and diverse generations and audiences, they have challenges that we might not know about. So you have to be open-minded to hear them, to listen. And it might be something that a lot of people have that problem, but you never thought about it because you don't personally have it. So I look at that aspect, and I look at also how you need to have something that you can share, something that they can connect to, and something that they want to follow. So like even thinking about us being on here and Wasim, how you would target people, you're giving value. You're thinking, how do I add value for this person? You're not just picking random people, you're picking specific people that you think would benefit of it. And they're reciprocating by acknowledging it. So you obviously are getting 6 out of 10. You're getting those connections because you delivered value. So if you weren't, you wouldn't be getting them. So think about what value you're offering when you reach out to people. And if you're getting a low signal and low response, then you're not doing it right. So reinvest your time into figuring out a better way and then try it again. But just keep trying, keep testing things, and just build your opportunity and your circle by testing new ways and listening to more people. And then, like you said about attending events that you didn't think you'd typically be part of, like the meditation and different things, like maybe even go yoga. I don't know.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to add, so we've got listen, be curious, self-honesty, be open-minded, think about what value you're offering. Sana, what would you like to add to that?
I would actually go into going more into being empathetic. So when I started Knowledge Nectar, and also having purpose, when I started Knowledge Nectar, I'd never been in the world of business before. And the one thing that made me want to start was the fact that I was truly passionate about helping students. And one of the first things I was told was I was too nice to be in the world of business. I still remember that. And actually, I mean, it's been a year and a half, and I've realized that, especially in the world of education, you can never be too kind, because it really shows when you truly care about the students, when you truly care, you want to inspire them, you want to help them. Don't even worry about being successful, because that will come anyway. So I think from the list that you mentioned, for having purpose is absolutely pivotal, but also being empathetic. In this world, we're kind of taught not to be nice, and I would go the other way and saying, actually, being empathetic is the best thing you can do. So that's my kind of stance on the list that you said. I think if you have the right intentions, if you found a passion that you truly care about, you would want to do the right things, and it will help you. And I think everyone else said some fantastic points about listening. So listen, which is something we can all do more of.
And I guess my thoughts then, coming to the last few minutes of this. Maria, this, as we talked about, right, this next decade is going to require consistent reinvention of oneself, whether that's a skill set, whether that's your network, or whether that's who you are as a person. And with the challenges that we're facing, as well as the opportunities for your alumni network, that student, that graduate right now, what are the top 3 things you would advise for them when they think about their network?
Great question. I only have 1 minute, so I'll see if I can kind of, pack that in. What I would be saying is like 3 key things. First is about welcoming that as part of your identity. So think of yourself as a student. I know it sounds silly. Think of yourself like an alum. Internalize that as part of who you are, because once you feel like that, it'll make you want to be part of a community, part of the network. So that's the first thing, is to, and advertise that by putting it up on your LinkedIn, on your social media profile. Say that you're a student of, an alum of, or whatever, and make sure that that's part of who you are as part of your identity. That's the first thing. The second thing I would say is to look at access to your network, to go and do some of that mining that we talked about. Try to find the people and be kind in your in how you're going and reaching out to them, and ask for 15 minutes of the time, and ask 2 important questions. And those questions are, who do I talk to next? And the other question is, how can I help you? Because I think sometimes we forget that we have a lot to give. So, do ask for 15 minutes of time and do a little bit of research before you do that. And it's not just a cup of coffee, it's a lot more. It's, doing a little bit of research in advance and making sure that you're maximizing that 15 minutes with this person so that they can see that there's value for them too. And the last thing is saying yes and being observant, as we talked about, listening and curiosity and all those things, and really just, building your network consistently on a regular basis. And I mentioned about an Alumni Friday earlier. So just this idea of building it into your schedule every single week, that you're going to go out and build your network. So those would be my 3 things: is identity, access to your network, and saying yes. doing it consistently.
I'm gonna have to like steal that quote off you. I'm just
Yeah.
putting copyright out there right now. Thank you so much. That was amazing, Maria. I really appreciate you being here. Angela, same three.
Yeah. Know who you are. It's an inside out job. This isn't an outside in. Don't rely on other people to tell you who you are. You have a chance to tell the world who you are. Know who you are. Be who you are. As Anthea said, show up as an authentic human every day. Don't try to be this person or compete with this person. There's only one you, and be that fully. And 3, share who you are. Share who you are in every sense. That is the best way. It is through your actions that define your influence. So how you act shows people who you are. And as Tamar said, share value over and over and over. It will come back to you 100-fold. Know who you are, be who you are, and share who you are freely, often, and generously.
There you go. Another copyright. I'm taking them all. Tamar.
Well, I mean, we said so many great things in this so far from the last two people. But what I look at is embracing your uniqueness. I find in a lot of the audiences we've been hearing, and today, this morning with our group, with the workshop, everybody had their uniqueness. They were from a different country with a different language, with different skills and different challenges. And I feel that those are strengths. Don't look at them as deficits. Have that mindset that you can see what your value is. So when you embrace your uniqueness, bring that generosity of spirit to others. And I think then you'll attract people. Like even when we hear Lachey speak about her challenges and how she made that into her platform. So your challenges become your platform because people can resonate. So just look at where you can add value and how you can do that regularly, and use the strategies that Wasim provided in LinkedIn Lives. And maybe you'll grow your influence and connect to the people you need to be connected to.
Sana.
I'm going to keep it short and sweet, but once I was gifted this beautiful frame with this quote, and it reads like this. It says, "No one else is me, and that is my power." So you are unique, and I think someone's already mentioned this. It's a beautiful quote, and I think really find what you love, and if you pursue that, you are going to add value to whoever's life you touch. So that's my final statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Sana. Anthea.
But you said everybody said so many things. Be courageous and embrace difference, and don't be afraid to change your narrative. So if you're courageous, it allows you to be a little vulnerable, but it allows you to take risks, which I think is very important. And at the same time that you're able to do that, it allows you to go into spaces that you've never been before, and that will allow you to change a little bit of your narrative, to expand your point of view and who you are. So take risks and be courageous and be brave.
Incredible. So with that, I'm going to say one more thing, just one more tip. I'm in a tip mood today. If you want to contact someone who's written a book like Maria or Angela or any other author, and you're a student or a graduate, go get the book, take a picture, screenshot it, email it, in-mail it to their LinkedIn profiles, comment on a specific section, and I'm sure Angela will reach out or Maria will reach out, right? It works. And I'd move the ratio up to 8 out of 10 times instead of 6 out of 10. Better than the LinkedIn Live. Thank you so much, all of you. It was absolutely amazing. We talk about the dynamics between men and women, but there are 5 superstars on this panel, and this is the way it's going to go. It is your decade. And this has all been possible because of Elevate Your Voice, Make It Matter, and StageClip, which is our partner who has brought this all together, has allowed this to happen. StageClip has been sharing life's big moments since its inception. Up to date, they've already reached out to nearly over 2 million graduates in sharing their big journeys. And it doesn't just stop at the stage, it goes further. So thank you, StageClip, and everybody involved with StageClip, because they really believe in the passion of these young people to change the next decade and change and influence the future. And I'd also like to thank our sponsor, Al-Masar, which translates to Path to Progression. And of course, Al-Masar, based out in Scotland, is a charity supporting local communities, marginalized communities, and helping them elevate people's voices. So with that, I'd like to say thank you so much, everybody. It's been great. And most of all of you be watching, because you've given your time to us today. And that is incredibly impactful and powerful.
And thank you, Wasim. Don't underestimate your contribution in this room, my friend. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And follow us. Our students will be sharing their journeys over the next few weeks. So we look forward to them sharing their great stories. Take care of yourself. Good night.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Amazing.